Today we are going to be upcycling some leather belts to turn them into ring belts. I will also be making a bag to go with my belt that is made out of an upcycled purse that I found at the thrift store. So you will have something to not only stash any unique rocks that you might find on your travels, but also you can put your phone in there, you can put a credit card or debit card in there. Anything that you need to carry, you can put it in this bag for your next Ren Faire or LARP. So, seriously though, I was super excited the other day when I went to the thrift store and I found what I found. It was like a gold mine for costume thrifting. This is what I found at the thrift store. They did have a wide range of leather belts at the thrift store that were your typical like leather fashion belt, but I came across this let's move it down. This chonker of a belt. Oh my goodness. And I was like, score, because this is leather. Leather.
Leather. It's exponentially better. Try leather today. Offer available for a limited time while supplies last.
And it was only after I got home that I realized this is a work belt that someone would use on a job site. And I think I was just really lucky to find this because it's super long, which is perfect. So that might be another option. You know, you could probably go to the hardware store and get one of these long belts. One thing that I had previously was a ring. So you can get these rings at the craft store. However, I found another belt and it has these not so round rings on it, and I bought this belt just because of these bits. I felt like I was in the apocalypse and I was scrounging for materials for things. If you're also lucky, you can find something like this and then use these as your hardware or find a round ring. The other things that I found are a couple of bags. So these are just purses. This one has a magnetic closure on the front and is more of a pouch than a purse, but I kind of think that this might be my best option. This one, just your purse. This is very plasticky, fake, leathery. The bags I found a little more harder to find what I was looking for. Just have a look around and see what you can find, because I think I'm going to use this pouch here and I'm going to alter it in order for it to be my bag. My husband was saying, well, you could just cut it here and then you could add a gusset in. And I said, how about I just turn it inside out? Right? Also take this tassely bit off because we don't need that. And then I can add some straps on the back. So I'm going to alter this to be more of a pouch to go on my belt. The first thing I'm going to do, however, is I'm going to take this belt, I'm going to take this top bit off, and I'm going to cut it down to be smaller and perhaps give me two belts. I'm really not sure how I'm going to get that bit off of there. It is not sewn on. We are attached with hardware, so I'm going to have to bust out some tools, I think. This might be overkill. Drastic times call for drastic measures. Haha, I win. So now that we have our cut piece, I am going to trim it down in half. I'm going to slice her in half with this. Now, if I remember how to do this correctly, you take this bit and you put it in the end, this bit, and this end here has numbers on it, and we've set it for 2.4 centimeters. I don't know if you can hear me struggling here, but I was struggling. One strap, two straps. So we should have one that's long enough to go around. I feel like I almost needed a bigger one. The only thing with this is that you have the holes where the belt was punched, which I don't necessarily like, but what are you gonna do? I'm gonna try to stain this. I have some bison brown dye that I was gonna use for a different project. So I think I'm gonna use this on the belt and see if we can change the color a little bit. We have our belt stained. I will let that dry and I will see you back here later.
The next day.
My dog is here.
Aww.
Skeeving, skiving. Because this leather is thick, and when I fold it over to put the ring on it, it is very thick. So I'm going to skive the end bit down with a tool so that when I fold it over, this is thinner in this section here, and I can sew it up easier after the fact. So I'm going to mark the area that I'm going to skive. Also, we are sick in the house because school has started and children are full of germs. So I'm going to skive from here down to here. So probably a good 4 inches. So let us skive. Now you can be loud.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
I heard one today.
Is it? What are you doing over there?
Knocking my garbage can over.
I have thinned the end of this enough that when it folds over easier here. When it was thicker, it was too thick. So now I should be able to punch some holes in here and sew it up, but not before I put the ring in there, because that would be a waste of time. This is ripping and I put too many holes in it, so I'm gonna have to do something else with this. I feel like I'm gonna remove this bit. Sometimes things do not work out perfectly, and when you rush, that's usually when those mistakes happen. I'm a lucky girl. I'm very lucky that we have a leather stash from our past projects. If you don't have a leather stash, you could probably get a couple of belts from the thrift store and just use pieces of both of them. So I ended up using some rubber cement to fold over this thinner piece of leather that had already been dyed the same color-ish that my belt was, and then I glued it on the end. And I almost forgot to put the ring on the end of it before gluing it closed. That would have been a huge mistake. Thankfully, Justin was downstairs working and he helped jog my memory. Supervised gluing for the win. Then I punched some holes around the edge in order to stitch it up using saddle stitch. I'm not an expert in leatherworking, still very much a beginner. Saddle stitch, you use a wax piece of thread with 2 needles on it, and you alternate going in and out of the holes with those needles. You can see Justin passing me a lighter when you finish, you can melt the thread and it helps keep everything locked in.
The very next evening.
I decided to try this on to see if it would fit me or fit me well. And unfortunately, it is perhaps not long enough. So it comes in and you're to come underneath and go back through and out, which doesn't give me a lot of, ouch, a lot of leather to play with. So it goes on and it fits great. Apparently these should be a little bit longer. This is just fitting me the way it is. Also, where I cut this belt in half and we have half the holes down here, we keep getting caught on the ring when I'm tying it up, and I kind of don't like that. So I've made the unorthodox decision to make it longer. So I am going to stitch the other half of the belt onto this one, and I've already taken this one and cut off the part where the holes were, so we just have a straight piece, and I've dyed this one as well to match this one. So now I'm going to use baseball stitch to stitch them together. I will be cutting off the end of this one. Whoops! I will be cutting off the end of this one as well, where the hole bits are, and then stitching this one onto here, and just making it longer. So I'm punching holes for the baseball stitch. It wasn't overly difficult to do baseball stitch. Again, it's a wax piece of thread with 2 needles, and then you just sort of crisscross them across, going in and out. I did have to tighten these up using pliers just because it was hard to get the needle in if it was tight, so I stitched it fairly loose and then tightened it afterwards. And then because I felt like it wasn't strong enough, I stitched up the sides as well. Okay, so we have a longer belt now. So I used a baseball stitch and sort of modified it afterwards just so it would hold a little bit better. So now for the try on to see if my belt will fit and be, oh, she's long enough. Well, she's not going to be too tight on me, that's for sure. Now I'm going to go on, and since the belt is finished, I'm going to start working on this bag. I need to move the magnetic closure or figure out something if I can that's more period, which I doubt it. I doubt I have anything around here that will work. So perhaps, maybe, and then sew some straps on the back so this can hang off the belt. And I'm going to test dye some areas on here to see if I can make this a darker color. Magnet acquired. Ew, it's gross and sticky under there. Somewhere out there, somebody is crying and going, no, why did you do that? Interestingly enough, when the dye dried, I had to go back to the pictures and see if it actually changed it or not. I did use a darker shade on the seams just to give it a more of a weathered look. It's a new day, and the leather dye has dried on my bag, and it's made it a bit darker, so I'm kind of happy I did that. The only issue with this is that where I tested the stains on the back, it has stained it a bit darker. So what I'm gonna try to do is take this little brush and see if I can brush it out and make it less noticeable just on the back here. Maybe a little bit. No, you can still see it. Okay, let's not worry about that. I am going to see about reattaching the magnets to this bag so that it closes, or attaching a different closure to this that's not a bagnet. Not a bagnet. Not a bagnet. What's a bagnet? It's a magnet for bags. It's a bagnet. Bagnet. Get yours today. I might see if I have some kind of buckle in my stash that I can attach to the front here to keep it closed. And then figure out what I'm doing for straps. We do have a lot of scrap leather that I can use for straps, so that is an option. And I do like that color on there. That looks cool. I was going to see about repurposing something from this other bag that I got and using even these as like straps on it, but no, I don't like that. So we're gonna toss that. And then I thought about, well, if I scrape one of these down, then I can also use that as straps. After skiving these last little remnants of the belt down, I glued them together. And then meticulously marked their placement, and then glued them on the back of the bag. There's some more meticulous marking and measuring. I had kind of an idea of what kind of stitching pattern I wanted to do for this. I ended up using sort of a saddle stitch and just went around the outside of a square pattern and then back through the middle, so it crisscrossed in the middle with an X pattern, and then doubled it up so I had gone through each stitch twice. And this one I did not. Instead of just melting the threads, I felt it would be sturdier that way. So I was going to use these magnets to close the bag up, and then I got looking at some pictures for inspiration on how to make this bag look more authentic or fit the theme better. And I decided to go a different route. So I have these antler buttons that my husband carved for me, and I'm going to use one of these, and then I'm going to use some leather cord and come up through the bag and then just around so that it just kind of gets cinched down like that. This is pretty self-explanatory. I punched a couple holes and then used a wax piece of thread with 2 needles to go through that piece of antler and stitched through it a few times to make sure it was secure, and then knotted it about 3 or 4 times as well for trimming those threads and melting the wax in. Making sure I was in the center here before I punched holes in the bag for the cord. I had to widen those holes as I was going along because the leather cord was just a little too wide for my holes. I threw in a couple knots at the end just so that they wouldn't get pulled back through the holes. And then decided it needed something else at the bottom. So I used some glass beads I got from a Viking shop in Sweden to add a little decor to the bottom. That's what I wanted. Just a little bit more decor at the bottom. Last thing I want to do is take my belt and size it to the length that I want. And my husband's been working away with some copper pieces that he's putting on the end of his. And I have these end corner pieces that go onto books. And I'm wondering if I trim this down, if I then can attach something like that on the end of it and it be like the end piece of my belt. I used a hammer and a nail to add a bit of a pattern to the end of this piece as well. And I think that might be it for adding things to it. Now all we have to do is try it on. And there we have it, how we turn belts from the thrift store and bags from the thrift store into a medieval style ring belt, fit perfectly for the Ren Fair or medieval fair or whatever else that you might have to wear it for. This turned out so great. I love it so much. Every time I make a project for this channel and this series, I just am in love with all of them. If you would like to watch another project that's like this one, that's nice and easy, I definitely recommend you watch this video right here where I turn a wool blanket into a cloak. This is a perfect beginner sewing project. So if you're new to sewing or you just don't have a lot of sewing experience, that cloak was super easy to make. So I would definitely recommend that you watch that one. And all you need is one $30 wool blanket and you have yourself a cloak. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. Bye.